Fans, I'm Alex from Undead Kingdom Reviews. We're here tonight with Hardcore Craig. First, I'd like to take the time to say thanks for doing this interview.
Oh, not a problem. Thanks for having me.
Thanks. So tell the fans who may not be familiar with Hardcore Craig when and where you got your start.
Well, I got my start. I started training at the end of 1989, and I started off with Johnny Stewart, and then he was a local AWA guy, and then he got me up to Wisconsin. And I finished off my training with Rocky Tom Stone. He also worked with AWA and worked all the territories when there were territories. You know, he was old school then. And he finished off my training. He had a camp up there and started booking me on TV and everything. So that's kind of where I got my start. It was just through those two guys.
Were you a wrestling fan growing up?
Oh, always. Yeah, when I was asked, you got a decent build. I wasn't huge when I broke in. I think I was 190 pounds, but then again, I was 18 years old when I started training. So yeah, when he was asked, you ever watch wrestling, and I wanted to be a wrestler since I was that big,
So who were some of your big influences?
Just basically, I watched a lot of the AWA and WWF. That was I was never really into WCW. I was always into the old school AWA stuff, and then I think by me going into WWF, obviously back in the day was Hulk Hogan. I used to watch Jimmy Superfly Snuka and the AWA. Those were my influences, like Greg the Hammer Valentine. I really liked him. Tito Santana. There's all the old school guys. That's what I grew up watching TV. So years down the road, it was really cool to meet them in the locker rooms and actually get in the ring with some of them. So,
okay. So
a lot of different influences.
So at what point would you consider your big break was?
I don't really consider that I've ever had a big break. Just my few goals that I always wanted to accomplish was, when I first broke in, I wanted to be in a WWF ring. I got to do that, and that was through Tom Stone. And I always wanted to go overseas to wrestle, and I got to go overseas a couple times. And I think, as in like the biggest break, I would say getting to go overseas. I thought that was really cool because that was something I never thought would happen.
Yeah.
And I got to wrestle one of the other guys that I idolized, was the Dynamite Kid. I got to wrestle him over there, so that was a blast. And I guess if I had a big break, that would be it. 'Cause I've never actually been under contract with anybody, just been an indie worker.
So how did you evolve your early surfer persona to what you do today?
Well, my early surfer persona, that character was given to me by Tom Stone. We were at camp, and another old timer, Jake the Milkman Milliman from AWA, he had a ring in his backyard, and on Saturdays during the summer, I would train twice at night during the week up in Milwaukee. I'd have to drive back and forth. But in the summers, he'd have the ring up, and we would go and train on Saturdays there. It was just an open camp. Anybody could come to his house and hang out. So I just started doing stuff off the top rope. Thought, hey, I've never seen anybody do this, do that. And I started doing some of the moves. And Tom came over and he's like, "Where the hell did you come up with that?" And I was like, "I don't know. I thought it would look cool to do a Frankensteiner off the top rope, or hey, I thought I'd like to do it. I never seen anybody do drop kicks off the top rope, just high flying stuff like that." And I had really long hair at the time, and he says, "You know what? We're dyeing your hair blonde, and you're going to be in the tag team with the Beach Bum over there." And he's like, "You're a brat, so you're going to be the Beach Brat." And then that's how it kind of evolved. Next thing you know, my hair's white, and I'm wearing a wetsuit. So, and then from that, we did, a couple of years run with that all over the Midwest, and then, obviously as all tag teams come down, you got to have your feud as a tag team. You got to break up.
Yeah.
And I kind of went off in a different direction. Well, not like I was trying to change my character or anything. It was just the style that I was working. I was doing a lot more hardcore stuff before hardcore was cool.
Yeah.
And a promotion had started up with Mid-American Wrestling, and we were working actually the Wave Rider gimmick there, and a lot of the stuff I was doing was considered, wow, that's really hardcore. Was one of the guys came up and said, "You'll do anything to get the crowd's reaction." you're hardcore. And then that became my nickname. Everybody just called me HC in the locker room. And Carmine DeSpirito from Mid-American Wrestling said, you know, want to change your gimmick around, you know, it's not really. When I broke in, that character, you know, like Doink the Clown and characters like that,
Yeah.
I was doing other stuff, so he wanted to change it around. And he says, well, we could call you Hardcore Craig or Kamikaze Craig. And I thought, well, you know, I'm on shows with this guy, Kamikaze Ken, which is Mr. Anderson. And I said, I don't really like being named, you know, like that. So I said, you know, let's just go with Hardcore Craig.
And it's just.
And then everybody else, and it just stuck. And then everybody else, you know, then there was Sandman came into WCW as Hardcore Hack, I think it was. And then Hardcore Holly, and everybody kind of looked at it as like, you know, aren't you going to change your name? I'm like, well, no, it's been my nickname forever. I'm sticking with it, and I'll ride through it. So, still using it to this day.
Do you think the indie scene today, though, is oversaturated with promotions where
Oh,
almost every corner
definitely.
has one?
Oh, definitely. When I broke in, there was an Illinois wrestling, there was a state wrestling and boxing commission. So it was regulated. So you just didn't have all kinds of people who couldn't get booked on shows just go and start their own promotion. If you wanted to work in this business, you had to be trained, and you couldn't go out there in tennis shoes and being untrained, and that just wasn't around there. It wasn't saturated like it is now. Now all you got to do is go online and buy a ring, and you can start running shows. And so yeah, it's way oversaturated.
So if you own boots and have a friend in the business, then you're a wrestler. So you think that's a pretty fair statement?
It's a fair statement. They'll call themselves wrestlers, but they're not wrestlers. I've been on lots of shows where you just kind of look at the guys in the ring and consider me old school as by looking at them, and they're not wrestlers. I don't like that point of guys doing something that I love, wrestling, and everything, all the dues I've paid, all the training I went through, everything I'm still going through, and for somebody to just come in back door and call themselves a wrestler, I take offense to that.
So you consider it pro wrestling and not sports entertainment like some of the newer wrestlers?
Well, it's all sports entertainment. I mean, that's what pro wrestling's about. But there's a lot more behind it to actually being, being a professional wrestler.
Yes.
You carry yourself across as a professional, and there's the way you work in the ring as professional, and there's a lot of unprofessional people out there now. A lot of guys who weren't taught respect and theory and how to work and how to protect yourself, number two, but number one is always to protect your opponent and who you're working. And a lot of guys don't think like that anymore, and that's something that was drilled into my head in my training. So.
Okay. Do you think wrestling could ever go back to the territory system like it used to be?
No. It'll never go back to the territories the way it used to be. Vince just has, he has control over the market. He'll buy you up, put you out of business. It'll never go back to territories again. As much as I'd like it to.
You think it would work if it was able to?
Well, it'd work if Vince wasn't around. I mean, that's the whole thing. Yeah, if Vince wasn't around, there might still be territories, But you see, the AWA had popped up again, here and there. The NWA is trying to, there's promotions I do that are NWA. They're under AWA. They try to do their territories, but you'll never have the territories like you used to, which was kind of cool. I was on the tail end of when the territories were going out. So, I mean, I got to see a little bit of it. So that was kind of cool. It's something that I could say being in for almost 22 years that a lot of guys haven't seen. They don't even know what that was like. So.
So of the national promotions, past or present, which have you worked for?
Just WWE.
Any fond memories from it?
Just a lot of fun road trips with the guys and stuff, and that's all. I mean, it's cool wrestling in front of that many people, but you're out there getting smeared across the mat. I was a new guy then. I think I was probably only in maybe 3-4 years. Yeah, probably 3 years. I think I started in my first stuff was in Canada for WWE. So I think it maybe like 3 years in like '93. I think was the first round that I went through with them, but just road tripping with the guys and stuff.
Yeah.
That's about it.
Any desire to ever go back to WWE or try TNA, Ring of Honor, or back overseas?
You know, I'd like to do shows with Ring of Honor. You know, it's more of like a pure wrestling style compared to a lot of the characters and you know, you watch WWE or TNA and it seems like the first 20 minutes of it is everybody on the microphone and all talking. Ring of Honor looks more like a pure wrestling style crowd, and you know, their whole persona of a company. I mean, I'd like to work with them. You know, I don't know if it'll ever happen, but if I got to pick any of them, it'll be them.
Okay. If you had to pick one opponent though that you faced, who would be your favorite opponent?
Oh, by far, Dynamite Kid from the British Bulldogs. I was stoked. That was, like I said, that was one of the guys that I idolized when I was a kid, and well, I wasn't really a kid, but you know, a teenager, or whatever. And I really loved the way he worked. And if you want to look back at anybody who, as the great wrestlers go, you know, the best in the world, go back and look at some of the tapes of the Dynamite Kid and what he was doing in the early 80s and 90s. Go look at some of his tapes from Japan and the stuff he would have, you know, the matches with Tiger Mask. And compare that to what you see on TV today. There's nobody that can duplicate that style. He is probably the best wrestler there ever was, in my eyes.
Oh, okay. If you could pick one person though that you haven't faced in the past or present, who could it be?
I would maybe say Bret Hart, because he's another pure, like more of, you know, in my mind, a hardcore wrestler. He's a pure wrestler. He's not out there to, you know, be flashy or anything like that. And he knows his moves and his theory behind matches. That'd be one guy that I'd really like to be in the ring with. Well, and it'll never happen, but.
Yeah. If you had a preference, would you rather be a heel or a babyface?
I like being a heel. I'm pretty good at being a heel, and I know what a heel has to do. I was trained by Johnny Stewart was a heel, Tom Stone was a heel. So by watching a lot of their matches, I could see how a heel should interact with the crowd and everything, and it's something you don't see a lot of. A lot of guys don't interact with the crowd and everything. They want to do the heel moves, play the heel. I like to interact with the crowd and get people to the point where they want to jump over that barricade and punch me in the mouth.
Get some interaction going.
Yeah, and that's your job as a heel, and I'm pretty good at that. But I go back and forth, you know, heel, face. But yeah, I prefer a heel.
So in April 2010, you became Pro Wrestling Blitz's first champion. What are your early thoughts on being handed the reins to the company? I didn't mind it. That's a lot of, I mean, in my eyes, that's a lot of pressure because I feel that's a lot of weight on my shoulders. Other people think of, you know, winning that belt, that they've accomplished something. The belt is a prop, but as the heavyweight champion, I feel that it's, you know, it's on the champion's shoulders to be the main event, regardless of who's on the show. You got to leave, you know, you're on last. You should be sending those people home, remembering that, and then bringing them back for the next show. So, yeah, I mean, I was nervous because I knew what was expected of me, because Tony Scarpone runs that company, and he hasn't been around as long as me, but he's you know, been around for I think maybe 10 or 12 years. And yeah, I mean, in my eyes, there's a lot of pressure on that. When you get the strap, you got to be able to perform and give it 110 every show. And so I did it for over a year. So with Blitz's recent venue change, them having almost 500, 600 people a month now, what do you think of the change for the company?
Oh, it's a great change. I told Tony, but he had to find a bigger building. It was limiting all the guys, all the matches. It was you're limited to the ceiling height, and the venue's so small. And now that he's moved over to this other building, he moved to that building in January this year, and he had over 800 people his debut show in the building, and that's all that promotion needed. Now you got a giant backdrop with the entrance and everything. The wrestlers can do all kinds of, whatever they want now. It's limitless because there's no ceiling involved. The venue's bigger. Everything looks bigger now. Instead of one giant screen over the entrance, you got one on each side. It's better presentation.
Yeah.
And the lighting and everything. I love the old school lighting.
And it's a better capacity. So
yes, exactly. The people can more get, and like I said, it allows the wrestlers to perform, to do a lot more. Ever since being in that building, I've done a lot more stuff than I've done in that VFW. I mean, regardless of the names that I worked at the VFW, by going there, I mean, I told him first show, I laughed at him and I says, hey, it's about time you got a new building. Okay, you sold out, now you got to get a bigger building. You got to get a bigger building. And he just laughed at me. But yeah, that's a great promotion, Russell. I'm proud to say I've been there for quite a while, and I was proud to be given that opportunity to run with the belt as long as I did. Got to prove myself.
So what do you feel of some of the other solid promotions that are out there today?
How do I feel they are, or
yeah,
who are they?
Yeah, who do you feel are some?
Powell's got a good following. He's got he's got a solid roster. I know AAW, they got a real solid roster. I've known Silas Young for years, and they've had a bunch of other guys go through there and who are there. They got a nice solid roster too. That's pretty much the three that I would name, in the Midwest. I haven't wrestled for PCW. Like I said, I'm basically doing POW right now. Blitz, coming down here to ARW. I do Great Lakes Championship Wrestling with Dave Hero. I was doing Bruce City. They got a good solid locker room too. Dinty Moore is up there, and Nick Colucci. They got a good solid crew up there too. But as in for like the Chicagoland area, it would come down to those three: POW, Blitz, and AAW.
So where do you see Hardcore Craig in the business in the next 5 to 10 years?
I don't know about 10 years. I turned 40 in July, so I'm basically the same place. I'm basically, I came up and now I'm just riding. We'll see how long I can go. I'm not gonna overdo it. When I don't feel that I can perform in the ring, and it's getting a lot harder. I'm gonna have to work a lot harder at staying in shape. Obviously because I'm getting older. But I'm not gonna embarrass myself just so I can say I'm a pro wrestler.
Okay.
So if I can't perform, that's when I know I'm going to stop. But I'm at a good point right now. I feel that I still feel I'm performing probably I feel that I'm on top of my game right now, better than I have been over my whole career. So I thought about, by the time I'm 40, I'm probably going to have to retire. But I feel with my matches, and then obviously with the run I had as heavyweight champion with Blitz, I proved to I surprised myself too, because I didn't think I would be able to cover the company and carry it, carry that title as I did. So, same spot in 5 years. Hopefully I'm still moving around like I am now.
Okay. You ever had any dreams or thoughts about maybe starting your own promotion?
No, definitely not. I wouldn't want that headache. No, not the way the locker rooms are now. I'm not one who's into all the locker room drama and bullshit that goes on. So
a lot to deal with.
Yeah, and I mean you're tossing a lot of money out there. You're taking a lot of risks and everything, and I'm happy where I would never start my own promotion, but I'm more than happy, as I do now, is I'm asked about stuff behind the scenes, backstage, with matches and stuff like that, and I'll always give my opinion on stuff like that, but as in like being on a booking team or something like that, I've told companies I'm not going to be part of the booking team if I'm an active wrestler. That's where I won't cross that line. There's too many guys who are bookers and wrestlers and book storylines for themselves. You know what I mean? And I would never put myself into that position and get myself over. I get myself over with my wrestling. So.
Okay. So later tonight you'll be facing Machine. What are your thoughts going into the match?
I worked with him. We did one match in Blitz, and it wasn't bad. I was in the VFW hall before we moved to the bigger place. I'm looking to tearing it up with him tonight. We're in a bigger building, and it's a new company, so obviously I'm going to go out there and I'm going to work extra hard, and I know he is too.
A lot
So
more potential to do something crazy.
yeah, not crazy, just going to go that little extra step because I know I'm going to enjoy working with him. So yeah, I think we're going to tear it up tonight. A lot of hard hitting.
So we'd like to thank Hardcore Craig for taking the time to do this interview with us. Fans, we saw it on the DVD. You can check out this interview on the DC Video 108 YouTube channel or on UndeadKingdomReviews.com. I'd like to thank you one more time for doing the
Yeah,
interview.
no problem. Thank you very much for having me.
And we'll see you in the matches.